So there's quite a few people who are new to this channel, and I thought I would do a car video today, just reading a couple of great short quotes from famous law of assumption, law of attraction type of teachers that, uh, you know, some people may know a lot about and other people don't know that much about. Um, and all the quotes I'm going to read, they're from three men, all all great teachers of these manifesting concepts. And I think you're going to get something out of um, what they're saying. If you're unfamiliar with this channel, what we talk about here tends to be more in depth in regards to how we can integrate these ideas in our life compared to a lot of the advice and information we hear. One of the people I'm reading from today is Neville, and how we talk about Neville on this channel, it tends to be much more nuanced than what you usually hear, because that's what I think can help a lot of us. What helps move the needle, and you know, I have this channel so I can help you move the needle. I love helping people figure out little things that are going on the inside that make them feel different when they figure them out. And if you start to feel, habitually different on the inside, start to basically feel better, your life externally will inevitably improve in different ways. That's just how it works. So yeah, I love coaching and counseling people on that. And if you've never spoken to me before, I do still offer short free consultations to see if I can help you in that regard. So the first person I want to read from, and I think I might have read all these quotes before, but they're going to be interesting when they're put side by side. The first person I'm going to read from is Emile Coué. Emile Coué is my favorite, law of attraction type of teacher. He's hugely influential on a lot of teachers that came after him, including Neville. This is what he says in this short, brilliant quote. Return now to the point where I said that we could control and direct our imagination as easily as we could divert a torrent or control a wild horse. All that is required is for us to realize that it is possible, a fact of which most people are ignorant. Coué often liked to give this example of how like a torrent or a bunch of water cascading down a hill that could flood a town we could learn to irrigate it and actually have it supply water for the town and help, fertilize the plants and, make things grow in town. Or that a very wild horse, we could learn to train it and domesticate it and make it from a horse that could, hurt us to a horse that obviously could help us. Again, return now to the point where I said that we could control and direct our imagination as easily as we could divert a torrent or control a wild horse. All that is required is for us to realize that it is possible, a fact of which most people are ignorant. So that's, I think, the hidden key for so many of us is realizing it is possible. And for most of us, including myself, it's not something we just have to realize once, but we have to realize over and over and over again. Is that our imagination, our thought process, how we react to things is much more malleable, much more controllable than we might initially expect before we get into these ideas. And we can use more spiritual language to say that. Coué was a master at using sober-minded, practical, secular type of language to describe that concept, which is one of really the underlying concepts of all these manifesting ideas. That we have more control and direction over our imagination than we begin to realize. And when we start to realize it and recognize it more, our life tends to get significantly better from the inside to the outside. So now I want to read from Joel Goldsmith. This quote is from Invisible Supply. We've spoken about this book many times. We have a Joel Goldsmith playlist. I actually don't know if I've ever read this actual quote. This is a short quote that I think is interesting to put next to that Coué quote. Goldsmith writes, "The principle of supply is the realization that we already have, even though appearances may not testify to that. Because I and the Father are one, and all that the Father has is mine, we have. Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. As a child of God, you are joint heir with Christ in all the heavenly riches of the Father. That is a spiritual truth given to human consciousness." Again, I'm going to read that first sentence he said once more because it's so powerful and instructive and helpful in my opinion. Goldsmith writes, "The principle of supply is the realization that we already have, even though appearances may not testify to that." Imaginatively, through our human consciousness, we recognize we already have. We do not lack. We never lack. Imaginatively, spiritually, I guess you could say, if we're using Goldsmith's type of language, we always have. We are always one with the universe, with God, with the Father, whatever you want to call it. The realization of this is supply. It's not external, it's internal. It's an internal realization. It's an imaginative realization within consciousness, one could say. I hope I haven't lost all of you yet. Now I'm going to read some Neville. Follow that up with some Neville. This great quote. Read it earlier this year. My friend Cecilia, who has a wonderful YouTube channel and podcast, and I were talking about it. One of the more profound quotes of Neville's that I've heard, and I've heard many. This is from his 1966 lecture, Our Real Beliefs. Neville said, "Well, how to persuade myself that I have received what at the moment reason is denying and my senses deny. I use all this technique, and the technique is all figurative, has no power whatsoever. It is what it is implying." I think what it's implying is what Goldsmith just touched upon. That supply is the recognition that you already have it. And what Coué touched upon, that our imagination is much more controllable than most expect. And when we realize this, we have supply. We have inherent abundance. Once again, this great Neville quote. Because Neville, as I talked about when we discussed this quote before, is very famous for his techniques, sats, revision, etc. And here he is saying that none of that stuff matters really. That's what it's implying. So again, he said, "Well, how to persuade myself that I have received what at the moment reason is denying and my senses deny. I use all this technique, and the technique is all figurative, has no power whatsoever. It is what it is implying." I have a feeling it's implying something like what Goldsmith said, which is the principle of supply is the realization that we already have, even though appearances may not testify to that. And what Coué was talking about when he said, if I can find it, and I might not be able to. That I don't even know if I'm going to be able to find it. Here it is. Return now to the point where I said that we could control and direct our imagination as easily as we could divert a torrent or control a wild horse. All that is required is for us to realize that it is possible, a fact of which most people are ignorant. I leave you there. Any questions, let me know.